Let's talk about planning your show. We've already said, think about how you want to sound. Think about the experience that you want your listener to have. Imagine them with the headphones on or in their kitchen. Where are they? What are they doing while they're listening to your show? This is the single most important point, in my opinion, the experience you want your listener to have. Think about what they would enjoy. What's a single episode, right? Let's not think about your podcast. Think about one episode. What does that sound like? What are you going to give them? We start, and of course, this massively influences who's going to listen. We start with the topic. So you've seen today as well people saying they are interested in podcasts that relate to their interest. So there's this quote from Panic by the Smiths, so that's a song, that is about, I don't know, radio DJs. And something he sings is, the music that they constantly play says nothing to me about my life. And something I often ask myself when making content, or that when you're really conceptualizing a new idea, what does it say to your listener about their life? Because that's what makes people want to tune in. You need to say something to them about their life. Now, your topic, though, has to say something to you about your life. And you are the boss of your podcast. So when you are selecting your topic, don't just think about what's at the top of the charts. What am I known for? What is my expertise? Go from your heart, go from your gut, go from whatever organ is going to give you that feeling of excitement, and think about what can you talk about all day long. Maybe there's this rant, this lecture, this message that you have inside you that you just want to share with people. It could be about anything. It could well be about politics. I mean, for me, one of my messages that I will share with you at 2 a.m. if you need me to, I will share it with you in Asta car park if you need me to, is language learning can be fun. And languages are fun. Languages are interesting. Languages are really, really interesting. I want you to be interested in languages. Come on, come on, come on. Let me tell you how this is interesting. I will have that conversation with you anyway, microphone or not. So for me, as a podcaster, that is a potential really, really good topic. I say potential. I mean, it's what my podcast is about. So you must find a topic that you are excited to talk about all day long. And again, I'm going to use my English teacher friends, my English language teacher friends, as an example. If you are making a podcast and you're thinking, I'm going to make this about phrasal verbs and prepositions, think about whether you're still going to be excited by phrasal verbs and prepositions 6 months down the line. Or could you make a show that is about life, about conversations, maybe about a passion of yours, and just adapt it for English learners? And that way, your excitement, your inner passion is going to keep you going and going and going and going. Now, that's the topic. Secondly, this is a very important building block. What mood do you want to create for the listener? So again, we're thinking about the listener's experience here. I've thought of a few ideas here: uplifting, energizing, relaxing, maybe friendly. You want them to feel welcome. Maybe you want it to be intriguing. Maybe you do want to make a crime podcast, Maybe you do want to tell stories that keep people in suspense until the last minute. Maybe you want it to feel personal. Whatever it is, whatever mood you want your podcast to create, that is a very important component of your show. Next step, then, we're thinking about the topic, we're thinking about the mood, we're thinking about their experience. And now I want you to think about the promise of your show. What is your show before somebody even tunes in, or if they're tuning in the first 5 seconds? What is the promise? So you've thought about what you get out of the podcast that you enjoy. Now think about what your listener is going to get out of the podcast that you enjoy making for them. And I think of this a little bit like a trade, because your listener gives you time and attention. Very generous of them. what do they get in return? What are you giving in return? And I'm going to give you an example in a minute, but I'm just going to grab a little water, have a think about that for a second. Your promise of your show, I just said already before they even press play, your promise is communicated to them in so many different ways. Your show name, your show's description. You are going to need one for Apple, basically. Without Apple, you don't have a podcast. So you do need one for Apple. And how do you introduce the show? So, for example, when I introduce my show, there is something that I say every single time. Every single time my welcome sounds. In fact, I can play you the music because we've got the jazzy thing. My intro sounds a little bit like this. Welcome to The Fluent Show, a podcast all about loving, living, and learning languages. Hello, my name is Kirsten Cable, and I am here to talk to you about anything and everything interesting from the world of learning another language. That's my intro. That was fun. As you can tell, there are certain things that I want to communicate with that intro and certain things that I want to communicate with how I describe the show. And when I thought about the kind of show I want to make, I thought about what's important for me. What do I want to put out there? And I'm making a show that is kind of unusual in the sense that I'm in the niche of language learning, but in my podcast, you don't actually, it's not a textbook. I'm not a talking textbook. It's a show about telling you everything and anything interesting from the world of learning another language. So I will cover what I want to cover, what I think is interesting. And the promise that I make to you is not, number one, you will learn a foreign language. That's the effect, I think. But the promise I make to you, number one, is this is going to be entertaining. So we've got the upbeat music that sets the scene, that gives you the mood. It's called a show. It's not the podcast. It's not called the language lesson. It's a show. That is a deliberate choice. And the second thing I want to deliver you, again, is not like grammar or whatever. It is motivation. And again, this is why I start with fairly upbeat music. This is why I say this is about loving and living languages before learning, because languages color our whole world. And this is why in the show description, we start with learn a language or maybe free, because I want to invite you in as much as I possibly can. So what you're seeing here is what essentially your show looks like in Apple Podcasts. Spotify won't be that different. Most popular podcast players won't be that different. This is roughly what your people see. And then the other thing that I've chosen here is a certain image. So the artwork that I've chosen for my podcast, again, I wanted it to not have any flags on it, and I didn't want it to have my sort of smiling face on it. I wanted it to be fairly abstract and intriguing, and again, communicate this is going to be fun, this is going to be entertaining. So that's, for me, what I wanted to achieve with that artwork, and I did have a think about it. And then the other thing that is obvious from the name, obvious from the image, obvious from the description, and from the Apple category that you see there, sort of above the ratings and stars and all that kind of stuff, you can see the category is language learning. So then we're saying, okay, this is content about language learning. But for my personal promise of the podcast, my promise number one is I want this to be entertaining. There is nothing cooler than when a friend says, oh, I sometimes listen to your podcast. I don't even care about learning languages. I just enjoy the show. That is what I want to make. For me personally, that is one of the most exciting things. So I need you to think about, what is the promise of your show? What is it that you want to give people? Do you want to give them a home? Do you want to give them something really quick to take away? Do you want to give them something to improve their life? There's lots and lots and lots of things. Now, let me zone in on the show name for a minute, because I think a lot of you might get stuck on that. I certainly did for a long time. I just want to let you know, or say, you can name your podcast anything you want, anything at all. From experience, the one tip I would have for you is that a name that is a little bit shorter is more effective when you are introducing it to strangers. And I'm telling you this as somebody who spent about 5 years telling people, yes, I have a podcast. And then they would ask what it's called. And I'd say it's the Creative Language Learning Podcast. And I could see people get bored halfway through the name. And that's why I changed the name. The most effective podcast names are in some way intriguing. So you're making the listener curious. You're not giving everything away. You're telling, maybe think about, again, the promise and the mood. How can you reflect the promise and the mood in the name? Secondly, they need to be usually reflective or relevant to the topic so that the listener knows what to expect, right? You don't want to call your show necessarily Fishing Tackle and then make it this really serious meditation podcast. But you could call it Fishing Tackle and make it a comedy show. And I think that could work. Because of all the other things that go into it, right? The artwork, the description, there's other ways of communicating to your listener what you are promising them. And the podcast name, in my opinion, needs to be reflective of that mood. For now, choose a working title for your podcast. Don't worry about it too much. Don't get stuck for 5 months in the title of your podcast. Choose a working title, because often they're a grower. But review it at every stage of the way, right? So you're going to be doing a lot of preparation stuff. You're probably going to be a lot of play before your podcast is officially published and you are launching it. There's usually about a month of doing other stuff. And in that time, choose a working title. And if you really don't like it, 1 week down the line, you can change it. Now, this here, to me, we've talked about the promise. And now I want to talk about you as a creator. And talk about the thing that makes your podcast stand out. Talk about the thing that makes your podcast different from other shows out there. And to me, that one thing that no one else is going to be able to in any way duplicate, top, outdo is always going to be you. You must share from your own point of view. You must share your point of view. And by that, I don't mean telling us what you think about Donald Trump, right? Or whatever. What I mean is you must share how you see the world, because that is part of what people are buying into with you as the podcast host. Even a podcast host like, I'm thinking Ira Glass or Guy Raz, who really make their show, that they're journalists, right? They make the show about the guest, they make the show about the topic. You still get a sense of how they see the world. So you must bring that to the table. You don't have to share your own journey. You don't have to give away the barn or whatever, but you must be open to letting it color how you are seeing the world, and you must bring that into the crafting of the show. You must bring that into how the show promise fits together, how what you want to create is going to help people. You got to podcast with some feeling. Ideally, you just want to fall in love with your listeners. Really, if you're making it with love, it is always going to be better than if you are following some formula and trying to make a hit. And ultimately, the reason we are here, the reason for me at least, why we podcast is because you want to stand for something. You got to stand for something. You got to communicate something beyond just delivering information. Again, we are not talking textbooks. We are humans, and podcasting is about human connection. So go out there and bring some human into it. Bring your own flavor of human into your show. Finally, when we're thinking about planning your show, if you are getting stuck in any of these different aspects, here's my kind of homework for you. Think about your favorite shows and listen to, next time you listen, or if you go back to the archive, analyze a little bit, make some notes. What do you hear in those shows? Listen to 2 or 3 episodes, identify What are the bits that get you excited? What do you like about it? And how does it work? Is there a consistent intro? Is there a consistent outro? What else is kind of happening in that show? And the more that you get a sense of how your favorite podcast is constructed, the more it helps you figure out what is it that you want to put out there into the world.